Kathryne, welcome to the ICA Health and Wellness Committee first podcast episode kickoff. You are our first guest, and Susan Crowley is also here to help with technical and any other thing that might come up during the interview. Thank you for accepting the invitation. We are glad to have you.
Well, I'm excited about the opportunity to share some, I think, groundbreaking information for our field.
Absolutely. Before we do that, I would like you to introduce yourself a little bit to those people that might not know you in the community. Why don't you start talking about your education, your performance background, some of the publications and that you've had before, and master classes and teaching pedagogy that you have held throughout the world.
Right. Well, I have been a professional since 1980. I majored in music education at the University of Illinois, and then I went on to get a master's in performance at Bradley University, Peoria, Illinois, and then I was associate professor there for a while, and then I went to Indiana University, worked on a PhD in performance, clarinet performance, and I left there to play in the civic orchestra in 1983, 85, excuse me. And then I played in the civic orchestra for 3 years. I played E-flat clarinet, associate principal clarinet, and bass clarinet. And then I started my career. I played a lot with the Chicago Symphony and Lyric Opera and Elgin Symphony. I was principal clarinet with the Lake Forest Symphony since 1988. That orchestra folded when COVID started. Actually, I just played the Mozart Clarinet Concerto, which I dreamed of playing with them in my all my career. I finally, in my 33rd year, played it, and the orchestra folded the next week after COVID started. So it's just been a ride for all
Lucky
of
one.
us. And I've done teaching. I've been teaching since 1980. I switched completely over to performance, and then teaching continued all through my since 1980 when I graduated with my undergraduate. And let's see, I have taught at Indiana University. I taught at Wheaton College and at Northern Illinois University. Now I teach at home. I had taught at also two high schools. New Trier High School, I taught there for 15 years. I taught for 18 years at Hinsdale South High School, and when the pandemic started, then I didn't go back after that. And so now I do a lot of coaching for the Elgin Youth Symphony, but my primary performing occurs with the Orion Ensemble, which has been giving a series. This will be our 29th season. So we give a 4-concert series in 3 locations every year, and we've toured. We've given residencies, and we have educational partnerships. I'm the executive director, so I write a lot of grants, and I organize I wash the dishes besides, besides perform. But we have, it'll be our 30th year next year, so you can imagine how many hundreds of concerts we have given. And I feel that the bulk of my work that I have done as a performing artist is definitely creatively done through the Orion Ensemble, and I've been blessed with playing with such wonderful musicians. So that's, I guess, a
That is
kind of
great.
snapshot of what I've
No,
done.
that is great, and seems to you have magnified your performance profession as well. Some of the publications that you've had. So you have CD recordings, you have other book publications, and you publish also in different journals throughout
Right.
the world. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I did become very ill in the early 2000s, 2002, and I had a severe digestive disorder. I also had suffered from chronic pain for most of my adult life, and it culminated into a severe digestive disorder. And I recovered from literally near death with finding out about the Weston A. Price Foundation and the work of Weston A. Price, who traveled worldwide in the 1930s and studied healthy people who had no chronic illnesses. And I studied the diets that he saw in these in 12 populations of people all from all different dietary history. I followed those principles, and I completely recovered my digestion and wrote a book called Performance Without Pain. I've given over 100 seminars around the country. I was in London, England when they had the Olympics. I spoke to Olympic athletes. I also wrote a book on acid reflux that's an ebook, a $7 book with golden information that a lot of people read around the world. Many singers who are losing their career because of acid reflux, very serious issue. And then I have done two, besides Orion recording, and all of our live concerts are recorded, I have recorded two albums of solo works, the solo Bach album that's published with Rubank, and then I finished in 2016 the Telemann Fantasias, flute fantasies that were transcribed for clarinet. I recorded them, and I mean, that was a huge project. Both of those projects, the Bach and the Telemann, were about 25 years of work. So I just did it. I just felt like I got to a place where I'm going to record them, and I think I'm inspiring people to look at that material as a solo work for the instrument. So.
Absolutely. I myself have played different sonatas from Telemann on the clarinet piano, as well as from Bach, the solo suites, and many more Baroque pieces that have been transcribed to the clarinet. Let's go back a little bit to your childhood. If my digging was accurate, you had some mercury toxicity that you were exposed to. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, as we go through our lives and things happen to our health, sometimes you can look back to elements in your childhood. And my mother worked for a dental office where she handled the mercury amalgam material, and what I've learned is mercury is passed on to your firstborn child. So it's very possible. I was born with very severe colic, and it's possible that my gut got damaged when just from that. And, I've worked with children with autism, and a lot of the reason why they have autism is due to toxicity from all kinds of things, but mercury is a big one. Which causes gut damage, and then I think that it probably was a part of the reason why I had digestive issues, and I now feel like it's completely better because of what I've done. But I'm just looking in the what could have caused the beginning of it, right?
Yes, absolutely. And you mentioned the Weston A. Price Foundation, and obviously it comes with that you did some self-digging and private research on what can cause those problems that you were having at the time. Let's talk a little bit about that process that you had. So you were looking for solutions, treatments. You might have gone to different doctors, therapists. How long did it take, that whole process, for you to actually diagnose the right diagnosis and look and find a suitable treatment for your symptoms that you were having at the time?
Well, when I was having the chronic diarrhea, I mean, it was so severe. Like I would have to drink clay water before getting on stage. I remember doing a sonata at the Chicago Cultural Center, and I, I had to run to the bathroom just shortly before. I was going to the bathroom like 24 times a day. And so I was really getting sick, and to the point where my body was shaking all the time, and I didn't know I was going to survive. Well, the pianist in our group, she gave me a book of Jordan Rubin, Dr. Jordan Rubin's Patient Heal Thyself. And that was a fairly new book back then, but he had Crohn's disease, and I read his book, but I learned through that book about so many other resources, and the Weston A. Price Foundation was one of them. And then I read other books about healing the digestive tract and protocols, but they all revolved around really nutrient-dense foods and like bone broth soup and all pastured meats and everything organic, going to the farm, getting raw milk. I make my own raw milk kefir. I've been doing that for all these years, since 2002. And so once I started eating, consuming the bone broth and the fermented foods like raw milk, which I fermented into kefir. Actually, it started out with raw goat's milk, but then I did the kefir. I did drink a lot of clay water, which I think helped to heal my gut, but the bone broth soup is definitely the number one thing. And then I did not eat any raw vegetables for several years. They were irritating. Everybody wants to have salads. I was a big salad eater. But the other thing that I did is I eliminated gluten. I discovered, before I discovered Weston A. Price, I figured out that I needed to be on a gluten-free diet. And so it's just so many things. And I think a lot of people are suffering from the very same things that I suffered from, because there's so many toxins in our environment right now that we're dealing with, that our bodies are not in balance. And there's, one thing could really just set you off to be going down a path that is very serious. But I never sought out medical help. I probably should have, but I'm glad I didn't, because I always knew, I've always known holistic health is where my heart lies. I don't want to take a pill. I just don't approach health in that way. I just don't want to depend on that. And maybe I might have symptom relief from taking a pill. I'm not going to find the root cause of any problem that I have with going that route. So, and medical doctors can do many, many things, but they're not trained in nutrition. And I always felt with a digestive disorder that it's probably a nutritional help would do the best things. So where I was going to a really good chiropractor at the time, he helped me with the introduction to my book. He had no knowledge back then. Many of the things that I am doing now actually are commonplace now. Bone broth soup, going to the farm, getting your food, grass-fed, everything like that, making your own kefir, fresh eggs from the farm. People who are really wanting to be well are tending to go in that direction now, but that was not common in 2002. The Weston A. Price Foundation has only been around since like 1998. Okay. So, anyway.
I see.
Okay.
So it seemed like, Kathryne, that your problem to the severe digestive disorder was mainly dietary related, and that you changing a lot of the dietary intake that you had at the time that solved most of that or all of that problem. Did it solve all of the problem related to digestive disorder, or the majority?
It solved the majority of the problem. There were certain symptoms that I had that, as we talk more about my story, which I think is so complex, My embouchure over time, I was better. It was shaking a little bit, and I didn't know how to fix that because it was just like it got a lot better with this diet, and as my diarrhea stopped, I didn't have that problem, but I had other problems coming down the pike that, as I say, I'm not sure every symptom that I had was not all completely related to my diet and gluten and all of that. Now I know after journeying into what we're going to talk about, which is the SI joint issues, which is a really big thing. And I want to just say that the dietary things that I discovered, there's a lot of information about these things now. But the thing that I solved, which I think when people lose their natural ability to play their instruments, and wind instrument, they can't blow the air, their embouchure is shaking, they would never ever think it would have to do with the SI joint. And
Absolutely.
so that is
Absolutely.
just a remarkable path that I have taken and luckily found the answer to. So we can talk about that.
I think your journey parallels FM Alexander's journey with his voice, when he just didn't know what to do. He was just losing his voice, and it actually came out to be the Alexander technique back more than 120 years ago that he started off, and many people joined to that later on, and it became a whole branch of somatic education. Very well. So the SI joint dysfunction, Kathryne, what is that, and how did you come about the term SI joint dysfunction? How did it really cross your path?
Oh, okay. So I kind of want to go a little bit through this. I feel like my story is going to be like, oh my gosh, did you really have all that stuff happen? Now, I just, so I haven't missed a concert, okay? But playing the clarinet at times was really, really hard. And what happened after I got better from my digestive disorder is I started to experience things that were not, I couldn't be my diet anymore because I fixed that, but I had a lot of hip pain, lower back pain. I couldn't run without pain. My gait was messed up. And what happened is after I gave birth to my second child, who's now a phenomenal jazz artist, she's a singer, but in 1995, I sprained my pelvis, and I had trouble walking for about a month. And I never thought a whole lot about it. I thought, well, you just get better from that. So, I didn't think I wasn't getting better from that. I did probably heal, but these symptoms started in about 2000, where I would have low back pain. I had an MRI. It didn't show anything, hip pain. And my walking was kind of funky. I didn't understand what was happening. And starting in 2007, I noticed that I had shaking in my sound, intermittent, and it was hard for me to play slow and sustained. I could do it, but it wasn't effortless. And I studied the highest level of playing, breathing, and all that, and I was doing all that, but no matter what I did, it seemed like my tone would tend to shake. And I didn't know what it was. So I just kept going as I was, seeking out chiropractic help for my low back. And he was my chiropractor, who I love him dearly. He helped me write the introduction to my book, as I mentioned before. But he kept doing lower back adjustments, putting me on my side and crunching my lower back to get it in place. It feels good for about 10 minutes, but honestly, that was the worst thing that I could have had happen to for a treatment for what I know now is SI joint dysfunction. I want to go on to some of the symptoms. I found that chiropractic help was no help. I sought out a physical therapist. She was a top physical therapist. She worked with the Chicago Symphony, the lyric opera musician. She would go on tour. And I love her dearly. She noticed that I had a twist in my body. And so we started working with the twist. Also through time, I worked with her for 6 years. So by the time I worked with these two practitioners and a couple other, I spent over $15,000 on treatments that were not going in the right direction. I love all of these people, but they didn't know what they didn't know what they were doing. So I worked on a twist, and my left leg was shorter than my right leg. So what she thought we should do is use a leg lift. Okay, so I put a thing in my shoe. Again, that's like the worst thing I could have done, is put something that would encourage that leg length difference. So I left working with her. I didn't think that she was helping me anymore after 6 years, and nobody was answering the question, why was I twisting? Why was my leg different? So I finished the Telemann recording, and that was a huge project. And after that, I don't know, it's like I spent my last penny or something like that, because I developed a soft palate leak. I'm looking at my list. I'm sorry, I have to look down, but there's a lot that happened.
Can I just ask a question? So
yes.
when you say that you had a twist, what did it look like? What did it feel like to have the twist? We are not talking about scoliosis, right? When we talk about
Well,
twist.
actually, I did develop a scoliosis, but my right side, my whole rib cage went this way, and my pelvis went the other way. Okay.
Okay.
And so that is not good. I want to tell more symptoms, because I'm gonna tell you what was happening and why.
Absolutely.
So I developed that soft palate leak. My neck, I could tell, was tilted to the right. Okay, so it was sort of like this. It was putting a lot of pressure on my carotid artery. So I probably could have had a stroke from this. And the air that I was blowing was not actually, the pressure was not coming up and out of the clarinet. It was going down and into my organs. So I prolapsed my bladder from playing the clarinet. Playing the clarinet, I think, exacerbated my twist, because the air pressure was not coming up and out. That's why I was having trouble blowing, because the air was not going into the clarinet. It was going down into my organs. So I could take a ginormous breath that I was taught to take, and the air was not coming. It was not going through the clarinet. That's why I had no power in my sound after a while. And so I prolapsed my bladder. My diaphragm was not working. I had no use of my core. My twist was so pronounced that my rib cage on the left, because I was twisting to the left, was collapsing on my heart, and I was getting dizzy. So I was just becoming more and more asymmetrical. And I got to a place where I could barely play a C major scale. I would sit in my practice room, and I would just try to play the clarinet. And I played, but it was like climbing Mount Everest just to play. I'd be better off articulating, which is why I think I could do the Telemann recording, because it was a lot of articulation. So that was easy, because I was interrupting the air pressure with the articulation. It wasn't such a stress on my breath. And in fact, the couple movements that I had to re-record because I had a shake in my tone were the long movements. I didn't ever have to do the more technical movements. Were not that hard for me. So by the grace of God, I learned about I told the choir director at the church I was attending that, I told her what was happening, and she started seeing a chiropractor in Aurora, which is about 25 miles from here, that was working with her breath. And she said, well, why don't you go there? And I thought, well, I'll try anything. Okay, so I go out there, and I didn't know anything about her, but she took x-rays of my lower back and my spine, and she could see that I had a severe sprain to my SI joint. And so what causes an SI joint sprain? Well, I probably fell pretty bad when I was a kid sometime. And then I exacerbated when I gave birth to my younger daughter, and I sprained my pelvis and I couldn't walk, and that never healed. So what happened is the SI joint is right to the side of in your lower back. It's a joint that's not supposed to move very far, and it's two little places near your lower spine. If you look at it, it'd probably be better if you looked at some of the diagrams that I sent to you, but it's not supposed to move a lot. And if it gets sprained, what happens is that it will become out of alignment. So if one side moves up a little bit, the whole body will start to twist. And over time, the entire structure of the skeleton, every single bone in your body will move out of place like a car with a broken frame. And it's going down the street, and the whole thing's rattling, and it's just not working right. Well, that was my body gradually over 25 years or so, or 23 years. I've been in treatment. My daughter's going to be 27. My whole body started, one side was off. My leg got shorter because my pelvis was out of alignment. I was crushing my lung on the left side. My right side of my lung was doing all the work. My diaphragm was not engaging, so I was pushing the air out instead of having the air flow from the diaphragm, because my diaphragm wouldn't engage. I didn't have a core that was working. It was asymmetrical. And yeah, my neck was torqued. Everything was just moving, and all my muscles, all my ligaments were all out of alignment. And there was no way, unless I got the specific treatment, sacro-occipital technique treatment, which realigned the pelvis and then started doing the exercises that I did and I'm sharing with you, I would have ever gotten better. I would have lost my ability to play. And looking back on all of this, there are many wind players that I know that I've met over time. You hear their sound, it doesn't sound the same way as they sounded 10 years ago. And there's a little shake in the sound. Or they just don't have the power. I want to read a quote from the chiropractor I work with. He said, without SI joint alignment and stability, you can't produce power. And that means wind power. It also means lifting things. I couldn't lift 5 pounds without being in pain when I was in this, the worst part of my structural problems. And by the way, I have no prolapse. Everything that I'm telling you now is totally gone. And
which is miraculous.
It is miraculous, because I had to structurally be undone, like untwist everything. Get both sides of my diaphragm where they were in alignment so that I could use the diaphragm. My core, I've worked on my core for years now, and it's symmetrical. And one thing that helped me, I'm going to show everybody, because I think it's using the Serola Belt. It's a SI joint belt. When I read the Debbie Risco book that I I know we're going to share some of these sources with everybody. I learned about the Serola Belt. And it's like if you sprain your ankle and you wear a support around your ankle. Well, I never supported that sprained joint. This belt you wear well below your breathing apparatus. I wear it around my hips and my SI joint, and the way it works is it pulls your body together symmetrically. The day I started using that belt, I got 50% more sound. 50%. The minute I put that on, I knew that oh my God.
A small thing can make a huge difference. That is very interesting.
And then I discovered some other books. This Sacral Pain book by Deborah Risco, that I learned about a lot of exercises. And then I since have, besides, I did the sacrooccipital technique. Over time, my pelvis was realigned, and they don't crunch your back, laying on your side and press into it. That is counterintuitive. You don't want to open up a joint that's already loose. So the SOT therapy involves with very specific use of blocking, and the blocks are like, they look like a triangle. They come down at an angle. They're a triangular shape, and so those blocks will align your pelvis, and then the muscles can heal in the proper placement. But it's taken several years of working with this, and now I'm stable, and I've been adding new exercises for hip stability. But it's amazing what this can do for your sound.
No, absolutely. I have a follow-up question. So it seems like from your story that your SI joint is actually looser than it should have been, right?
Yes, and I'm and you bringing that up. I was a big proponent of doing yoga, and I love the idea of yoga, but it's counterintuitive for a lot of people. And I just want to say that in the office that my chiropractor works in, he and his wife, they see, this disorder will cause pain in every part of your body. You could have hand pain, neck pain, shoulder pain, hip pain, leg pain, knee pain, foot pain. You might get surgery on your carpal tunnel, where the problem's in your SI joint. So 80% of the people that come into their office with one pain or another are really suffering from SI joint dysfunction of some level. And I think wind playing exacerbates this disorder dramatically because of the air pressure. If the air isn't coming up and out, I mean, you think that when you take a breath and you blow out with a clarinet in your mouth, that the air's coming up and out. I forgot to tell you that when I first knew that I was in trouble with my air, was especially not only that it feel hard to play. I got started on Leger reeds, and my pattern of air on the back of the reed, because you can see it, started at the upper right hand corner and went out about a quarter of an inch out to the left side of the reed. That's where my air was going. It was going not into the clarinet. So
no, definitely from the story what you told us, it really seems like that SI joint dysfunction doesn't just affect the skeletal a frame of someone or the musculoskeletal frame, but even so forms of professional playing like breathing process, intricacies of breathing process, and just throws it off from balance.
Oh yeah, and you look at you remember when it didn't feel. Are you just dreaming, or is this really hard to do right now? What is the reason why it's so hard to blow? It didn't feel like that when I first started. It should be easier for me to blow. And it wasn't like I wasn't taking a big breath. I mean,
Absolutely.
when people teach, this is the problem. Now, I've worked with many students now who have been helped dramatically from the SI joint belt, and then this information. I have a high school student I mentioned to you, Csaba, who she's now at Boston University majoring in clarinet, but she had actually a deformity when she was born. And when I was working with her, I'm like, you got to support more. And you know what? One day I just put the belt on her. She got 30% more sound in 1 second. So I said, do you have something going on with your pelvis? I've done that now with 2 adult students. One was a great adult player. She had 4 children. All right. So, probably you could have something going on with your SI joint. She had twins.
And we probably could not say in truth that this problem relates to women in whole majority. I think it relates to both men and women.
Yes, because if you start reading the information on this, it sounds like you've delved into it already. If you've fallen at any time in your life and you didn't get a treatment for it, you could have sprained your SI joint and you don't even know it. And I think playing a wind instrument, like I said, it would exacerbate the symptoms because of the air pressure. It's like adding fuel to a fire.
Yes.
You are going to, you're going to go, God, my core, I just can't get the air going. I can't sustain my tone.
Absolutely.
And you're going well, let me try a different reed, or let me try a different mouthpiece, or maybe I should get a new clarinet, maybe it's my clarinet. Well, maybe you need some of those things.
I have another question. You mentioned that when you started to figure out what was causing your problem, you actually went to doctors, chiropractors, and you had them MRI taken of your body. My question is, what did MRI show? Why didn't it show those things that when you went to a specialized chiropractor and took the X-ray image and actually saw what was going on around your pelvis, not show in the MRI imaging?
The first MRI actually went through my original chiropractor. That's the one you're talking about. Why?
Yes.
Well, I was working with a trainer. Oh my gosh, he was having me do all this twisting stuff, and then I really felt like I injured something. And they took an MRI of my spine. They didn't take an MRI that included the SI joint. So everybody thinks they wanted to know if I had a disc problem. Well, I didn't have a disc problem, but every symptom that I had was related to this disorder. So what we were talking about with men also being affected. I mean, how many men play sports and they fall and they get their body racked up, or they fall a lot? Like they're in baseball and they're sliding, then boom, they're hitting their body all the time. And I can only imagine the undiagnosed SI joint disorders going around men athletes who play the clarinet.
So it seems like the SI joint is flexible to some degree, and it can be, when we're talking about dysfunction of that joint, it can be either too loose, like in your case, or even too stiff, too rigid, as in some people that walk pretty funny because of the inflexibility in that joint.
Well, I actually don't think the joint can be too inflexible from what I've learned. I think it can be misaligned. And so I think that would cause the gait to be unusual. There's no other reason for that, because actually the weight, your SI joint is the weight-bearing structure of your entire body. It needs to be strong. That's why to me, it's a little bit counterintuitive to do, unless you're just perfectly in alignment, to do a ton of stretching out your lower back, because you need that to be strong, to carry things, to be square. I think people think of an exercise, especially stretching, they think that it's like everybody has to do these things. And I think that we need to have a strong core, like as playing wind instruments, we have to have a strong core. Our diaphragm has to be really working properly, and our body has to be in alignment. I can say, okay, I used to have to get a massage therapy appointment at least once a month. If I go now for 5 months without a massage, I don't feel any pain at all, anywhere. I mean, that would be unheard of. I can remember laying on ice cubes before an audition for a professional position like New Orleans Symphonies assistant principal clarinet, laying on ice cubes because I was in pain. Way back in the day, I'm like, I don't have any of that anymore. My hands don't hurt, my neck doesn't hurt, my shoulders don't hurt, my fingers don't hurt, nothing hurts. And I'm 65 this year. I'm getting
Absolutely.
younger.
No, that is great. And there are many statistics out there about injury and pain, regular pain of professional musicians. They estimate about 70-80% suffer from regular pain as they pursue their professions. And even more, they estimate that 100% people felt some pain at one point of their profession as a musicians. I would like to, as we are getting close to the end, but we still have a couple of minutes left, I would love to have you tell us about the specialized chiropractor that you went. I believe it might have been one of the sought chiropractor therapists that you went and diagnosed you. Is that right?
Yes, SOT, sacral occipital therapy, which works with the sacrum, SI joint, and the occiput, the bottom of the skull. But as I say that we're going to put links in this video for a number of things. And there are practitioners all around the country that do SOT technique. And they will be chiropractors in general. It's a very, very fine-tuned art and study. It is not easy to do. You have to study it for many years. So if you look at this list, and these lists are designed by really top people in that field, the chiropractors that go in this direction are probably going to be overall your better chiropractors, because they're not focused on traditional kinds of adjustments. Yeah, they're going to adjust your neck, the way a normal chiropractor uses, but they will not come and crunch your pelvis. They're going to align it. They're going to do an x-ray on your lower back. They have to see,
Absolutely.
what's going on. And then I also, giving information about certain exercises that I think are really powerful. And then the Serola Belt, again, you're going to wear the belt much. It's not going to engage it's not going to be putting pressure on your breathing apparatus, but it's going to hold your pelvis stable. Now, I am still using the belt. I thought I could not use it, and I didn't use it for about 4 months. And I played the Hindemith Quartet in November, and I just like, man, I'm just like working so hard. And I thought, well, I'm going to put the belt on. Oh my gosh! Like, what was I thinking? I'm not going to have the pelvis of a 12-year-old anymore. Give myself a break. I'm so grateful that this exists. And they do have other SI joint belts, but this one is the best. I mean, I've had this belt now for about 4 years, and I use it every day. I use it when I drive, I use it when I do a lot of sitting, and I use it when I play the clarinet. And I do a lot of walking, and I I don't use it when I exercise, but if I'm going to do like vacuuming, a lot of vacuuming, I'm going to use it because your body can, be doing unusual things when you're vacuuming, so you can support that. But,
absolutely. So sorry to interrupt you. So what you're saying is pretty much that not only when we practice, but also when we perform, we can wear and we should wear if this is something that restores our breathing process.
yeah, and you'll know, and you'll work with the tightness of the belt. And I would like to put my contact information in this video, because feel free to reach out to me. This is so debilitating. When your SI joint is affecting your playing, you are gonna really suffer. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, really. It's very scary.
No, it sounded very debilitating throughout your story. One more thing, you mentioned the exercises, and we'll have 2 links for different SI joint dysfunction exercises. What are some of the exercises that you have done and helped you tremendously? I don't know if they have a name or a short description of them.
Yeah, I can tell you, because I do them every other day. I don't do them every day anymore. The exercises that I originally used were from this book. Now, there's one exercise in the sacroiliac pain book by Deborah Risco. That was the original set that I used. There was one exercise I didn't, which looked like they were twisting. But you can use this book as a really good resource because she talks a lot about breathing. Now, I also have links to a couple other exercises. One of the really main ones of bringing your SI joint instability is to use a foam roller in between your legs that you have a rubber strap around. So you're going to do a bridge, and you're going to breathe in, and then you're going to do a small bridge, and then come down and squeeze the foam roller between your knees. And then you're exhaling, so that's encouraging the symmetry of your diaphragm and your core. So I used to do 30 like a day, and now I do 20 every other day. I also do for stability, one-legged bridges, which are really great for strengthening the glutes. If you don't have a stabilized aligned SI joint, I would not do some of the more advanced exercises until you know that you're working with a stable alignment. That's why starting out with Deborah Risco's book is really at the start, and then finding an SOT therapist. Another one that I do is where you lay on your side and you do clam shells. You bend both of your knees, and you lift one leg, but it's like probably an old-fashioned exercise that your grandmother used to do. Well, that's a good one. And then I do one where my leg is at a right angle. Those are really good for stabilizing the hip for me. I just recently added those. And then I lay on my stomach and I lift my legs behind me, one at a time. And I'm just trying to think of some of the other ones. I balance on one leg, and I just stand there, and so I'm really stabilizing the muscles of the other legs to be strong. A lot of breathing, like just laying down with your legs bent and taking a breath, and using your diaphragm and expanding, and really feeling the core engage. And for women, as we get older, this idea of your bladder prolapsing, I mean, these are all going to protect all of those organs from the wrong pressure of the air. And men, you don't want to be having these things when you get older either. You don't want to prolapse your bladder either.
No, definitely not. Yes. So We will include two links, as we mentioned. One is called an SI joint exercise link. It will have 3 different exercises included in that. It's a YouTube link. And the other one is also a YouTube link from a different person, a doctor. And she shares 7 different exercises for pelvis stabilizing. And some of these exercises you already mentioned.
Yeah. Do you have the SOT therapist links too that I gave you?
I do.
Great.
Yes, I have both, and we will work with the moderators for the post of the podcast that we can include those as well. Well, Kathryne, we are delighted to have had you here in a podcast series, and for the amount of information and all those specialized challenges that you faced in your life that you actually can turn into someone else's benefit, many people's benefit, so that they don't have to go through 20, 25, 30 years of discovery. Painful discovery to see what things
What
don't
is
work.
that? My goal is with SI joint, because there's a lot, I've said a lot of information on nutrition these days, good nutrition. I want our community of wind players, including brass players, to know about this, because I mean, I could have written another book, but honestly, I just really don't. I just want this to be passed through this interview and other information. If you could just get on the right track, and to know you might have this. What if the men who are such great brass players who can't blow anymore? Why? They shouldn't suffer like that. And all wind players, it's a terrible disorder.
Yes, but we are glad that you find the SOT therapist and they pointed out to the problem. So, Kathryne, thank you very much. It was a very valuable time. And thank you for accepting the invitation.
Well, I feel honored to be the first.